I've gone through how I started my businesses and kind of talked about the group of companies and a bit more detail around that. But I thought I'd take it back to the early days of starting those businesses, starting those first businesses. So these are the things that I wish I knew when I was starting out in business. Here's the first thing I wish I knew more, and I think a lot of people who are looking to start a business should know more. 20% of new businesses fail within the first year, 60% fail within the first 3 years, and around 50% don't make it to year 5. So that just shows how difficult it is to keep a business up and running. Because the most common reasons for those survival rates are things like poor cash flow management, lack of market demand, pricing issues, weak leadership or strategy, and not seeking support early enough. Those are the most common reasons. And across my now over 5 years doing this with my own businesses and helping clients with their businesses, I've come to see these exact problems in businesses. Sometimes we've been able to kind of catch it early and steer them in the right direction. Sometimes maybe a client's joined us and it's been a bit too late to rectify things and they have ended up going out of business. That's just the cycle of things, it's natural. But I guess going back to my original point, if you are looking to start a business and you're potentially in your 20s, like I was when I started, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds quite scary, to start something and for the odds to be stacked against you. Now, that's true. The odds are stacked against you, and it is very difficult. But having listed out those issues, or those common reasons why businesses go out of business, you can probably put together a bit more of a plan to ensure that you don't go out of business. Over the years that I've been doing this now, I've helped probably hundreds of businesses start, grow, scale, and even exit their businesses. The main thing about this, and for this video, I've kind of thought about the key things that I've come across in my journey, and I'm going to assume that everyone else going through the same thing, if they're starting a business at a relatively young age, are going to experience a similar thing. And the first one is that, yes, you have time on your side. But what it means is that you probably lack experience and credibility. So what this meant for me was that I had to learn at the speed of light and constantly having to prove myself to potential clients, to other people in my industry. Having a proper plan. I don't mean necessarily having a business plan, because to be honest, we don't have a business plan, and we still don't have a business plan, and we're over 5 years in. But having a plan on paper of, okay, what is this business? Who does it serve? Who is the target audience and target market? And how do we reach them? And then what are the goals? What do we want to get out of this business? Is it a big exit, or is it you want to earn a nice living from it, at least initially? Just having these things written down, they don't have to be the end goal on day one, because you are very unlikely to know that. I go into calls with clients and I ask them, what's your end goal, or what's your five-year goal? Hardly any of them know that, but it's more of a prompt than anything. When you ask the question and you ask yourself that question and you write something down, it's there and you can aim towards it. If after a year, 2 years, that goal changes, which is very likely to do, you can change it on your plan and then work towards that new goal. And another one is that you will have a lot less responsibilities when you're younger. So it's a perfect time to start the thing. But what it does mean is that you probably don't have a safety net either. you might do, it depends on your support network. If you've got friends and family that can help you out as well, which is the best way to get yourself up and running in a business. But it's unlikely, and so what it can mean sometimes is that the mistakes you do make in some of these businesses, sometimes they can be quite costly. So those mistakes can kind of cost 10 times the amount they would if you were a bit later down the line. You've got a bit of a safety net, maybe it's a bit of a cash buffer in the bank account. So some of these mistakes don't cost as much relative to the overall business. A massive one for me was I had so many ideas. I was coming up with so many ideas every single day, but a lot of them were, untested and very impulsive. I remember, a few days into helping create the first accounting practice. Obviously, I was just looking at it from a kind of a strategic point of view. How can we improve the client experience, that kind of thing. And I was looking at testing like all this like kind of new different tech and AI and machine learning, and that's not new. Like that's been going for decades. But I guess around 5 years ago, it wasn't practical. People weren't really using it in reality. Actually within an accounting practice and with their clients. So I had all these ideas and kind of throwing it all out there, and none of it sticks because there's too much going on. I'm kind of jumping from one idea to the other, not really focusing enough time on each one. So what I had to learn was discipline. So yes, I can put all these ideas out there, but house them somewhere, put them down on paper, and then go through one by one and focus on them. Test that, idea one, test that, speak to a client about it, get some feedback. It might not work, cool. Cross it out or park it for later and then move on to the next one. So I really had to learn to be disciplined when it came to, you're helping clients each day. You're also looking at how can we improve the business, the systems, the tech. You really had to kind of park all these sections of business in the right places and then dedicate the right amount of time to each one when it's appropriate. And I wasn't really gonna say this one, but I realized I did keep thinking about it when I was starting the businesses. And I think about it less and less now. But when I started out, I quit my job and then, essentially joined this new practice, and then slowly, we're creating more businesses. But in those early days, I found myself, over explaining what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I think that really came from other people not understanding, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but people, and I would have been in the same position potentially. If you've got a day job, so to speak, 9 to 5, working for someone else, it's hard to understand why somebody would give that up and start working on something that meant less income, at least initially, and arguably more stressful. Why would you do that? And so I'd get these questions, and I found myself, just over-explaining. And I did that probably for 2 or 3 years until I got to the point where I realized, actually, it doesn't matter that people don't understand. I don't need to over-explain. If somebody has a question for me on a business or something in particular, I'm happy to talk about it, but I kind of leave it there. I think it really came from an anxiety around setting up the business and what people might be thinking of me. And I had to put out this kind of persona that everything was amazing and it was all going really well, rather than just being honest and talking about what was really happening. And on that, I think you'll have friends that friends and family that just won't get it at all, and they never will. And be okay with being okay with that. Like I said, don't over-explain. You don't need to worry about it. But what will happen from this is that you'll meet new people that do understand it and they do get it and they are really interested in it. So it's a nice balance, and you kind of end up turning into kind of a bit of a new person, I guess, in order to grow this business, and the way you talk about it and the way you put yourself out there. So starting a business in your 20s isn't easy. It's not easy at all. But like I said, if you can really embrace it, understand that yes, you might fail, but you can take so many lessons from that and take it into the next project or into the next business. What will happen is that you will end up growing faster than you ever thought you could.